Okay, so this video is going to explain what training to failure is by asking the question, what is training to failure? So, um, training to failure is training to a point where you can't do any more reps of that specific weight during a set. So, a point of complete exhaustion, which makes it very useful as a training tool to make sure you're training hard enough or give you an awareness of what is hard training, and then you can kind of work back to find out whether you are training hard enough like kind of throughout the weeks leading up to that set of training to failure, and then going forward you can kind of use that as a gauge for kind of how difficult your training is in general. um, so it's going to give your muscles really effective stimulus for building muscle without having to do more than a few sets of an exercise. If you include training to failure in your sessions, it's going to mean you don't need to do endless kind of volume to get the most effective stimulus for your muscles. You can do 2 to 3 sets. Well, probably if you're training to absolute failure, probably 2 maximum. And then if you're using failure as kind of a finisher, kind of the final set should be to failure, that would probably be using 3 sets in most cases. Training to failure is included in training for hypertrophy, hypertrophy stimulus, which is muscle building. And yeah, by doing this, you optimize the muscle building process and the stimulus you get in a session. So, an example would be when doing bicep curls, you complete 2 sets of 10 reps. Think about the RPE scale we've just talked about at an RPE of 8. But on the final set, you try to push to 10. And in another example, you would probably fail there. That would be an example of failure. But in this example, you can then do the 11th rep, and you just managed to get it before attempting the 12th rep where you can't do any more. And that would be a point of failure where you physically can't move the weight that you were trying to use or have been using for the rest of the set or the sets before that. And that would be that point of failure, which again tells you how hard you're training. You're training as hard as you possibly can and makes it as effective as possible. When it comes to safety when training to failure, for exercise like bicep curls, pull-ups, bent over rows, and leg extension, there's no real risks to your safety. Think of bicep curls, you can just bring the dumbbells back down by your side. Pull-ups, you can just let go of the bar and drop to the floor. Bent over rows, you can just let go of the weight, and leg extension, it kind of drops down into that stretched position. You're not going to damage yourself. It's going to be more difficult to damage yourself on these types of exercise. But if you are training to failure out an exercise like a barbell bench press, make sure you have someone spotting you because you don't want to get trapped under that bar. It's going to be uncomfortable to say the least, and then the most could be the bar kind of really hurting you, which I really hope wouldn't happen. I've never seen it happen in a gym myself. But yeah, make sure you have a spot if you are going to be pushing to failure on these reps. And things like a squat, make sure you have the safety bars set at a suitable height so you can kind of just drop the bar off your back and bail out from underneath. That's why you kind of jump forward if you are pushing to failure. So again, you don't hurt yourself, you don't get stuck in that position and really uncomfortable and kind of contort yourself in, again, uncomfortable positions. Frequency. So on smaller muscles like biceps, triceps, and shoulders, you can pretty frequently train to failure with very little consequence. So for me, I typically take my biceps and triceps training to failure kind of every week. I only train my biceps in one session and my triceps in another session with 3 kind of sets that at the end takes complete failure. And for shoulders as well, you can probably take them to failure on most occasions. So that would give me kind of 3, maybe 4 times of taking a muscle group to failure in a week, and that they are smaller muscle groups, so it's easier to do that. There's less fatigue overall by doing that. If I think about larger muscle groups, so something like legs, and we're doing something like squats or the hack squat or the leg press, you probably can get away with that at first, train to failure once a week, maybe in one set, one all-out set, where you do as many reps as you can. And anything beyond that, especially when you're just starting out, is probably going to be quite a lot. It's probably going to really wipe you out and really make you feel fatigued and tired and worn down. It makes it harder to push in further sessions in the week and can affect kind of your day-to-day life as well with things like soreness and just like feeling lethargic. This doesn't mean you shouldn't train to failure on legs. It kind of means you can do it maybe once a week, and as you progress, maybe twice a week as well. So as a general recommendation, I would say at least once a week per kind of those smaller muscle groups for biceps, triceps, shoulders, things like that. You could do it with calves, but it's probably not so necessary. You can kind of train with a difficult intensity, but doesn't need to be to absolute maximum failure. And then for legs, there's bigger muscle groups like quads and hamstrings, maybe on an RDL for the hamstrings, or squats for the quads. Again, once a week maximum over all your legs probably to start with, and then you can build it up from there. But it doesn't need to be every week if you don't want to. If it doesn't need to be every week, and then it could be like once a month to then try and kind of get a gauge on whether your train's been hard enough from the weeks prior. If you do train to failure and you get, say, 20 reps on something like a bicep curl when you've been doing sets of 10 with that weight, that's a clear indication that you should be increasing the weight and kind of your training hasn't been hard enough, I would say. So that's why having frequent training to failure is really important, to kind of make sure you are training hard enough and make sure you're getting enough out of your time in the gym. But yeah,